And we're going to cover today, what is market research, the different types of market research questions, and, marketing metrics. What do we mean by these? So, what is market research? Um, According to various definitions, marketing research is defined as the systematic design, collection, analysis, and reporting of data and findings relevant to a specific marketing situation facing the company. Marketing executive Peggy Morgan Collins holds the view that marketing research is simply investigating a specific group for a specific reason. And there's a YouTube link here, so you can have a look at this. But marketing research is very, very important, especially for managers, senior managers, primary research and secondary research. Extremely important to be able to conduct it correctly, so that it can give you the right information for you then to base decisions. So the marketing research system, the specialty line marketing research firms, there are syndicated service research firms, and there are also custom marketing research firms that could do this for you. And if we look about the marketing research process, the first thing you must do is to define a problem and the research objectives. And this might look a little bit more simple than what it is. And getting this correct, defining the problem with narrow parameters and the research objectives in terms of knowing what you're trying to achieve, is extremely important from the outset. The next stage is to develop the research plan, and then to determine how you're going to collect the information. After you've collected the information, you need to analyze the information, and then you need to present the findings, and finally, make a decision based on the findings that you have. So an example of marketing research application from your, mobile. Again, you have videos, voice, email, internet, music downloading, other applications, and picture messages. So so this figure here, is the highly competitive mobile communication industry. So marketing research is focused on, which new services customers might be willing to pay extra for, such as a television viewing or music downloading. So which of these would customers want to pay more for or pay a premium for? And when we look about the different steps and the stages in terms of marketing research, the first step is to define a problem, to specify decision alternatives, and then to state the research objectives. And I can't really begin to tell you how important primary and secondary research is, especially primary research if conducted correctly. I can tell you that the first company I worked for was a company called Metro Products, and 6 months into the job, I was recommending that we change the packaging, and change the packaging was a big thing for the company because everyone was against it. And really, the question in terms of the research, which I didn't know, was what should we put on the front of the packaging? And so I had to really define the problem. So it's not really what did I need to put on the packaging. Really, the problem was what would enhance the consumers to buy the product with information that was on the packaging. So what would entice them to buy to a greater probability? And therefore, I had to look at the consumer buying behavior model and take into consideration how people buy and what type of purchase it was. And then, taking that into consideration, I had to determine whether it was a compensatory or non-compensatory decision rule in the consumer buying behavior model, and because it was classified as a high involvement purchase at £30 or £50, and therefore people or consumers would go and investigate and do more research. So I actually devised questionnaires to determine the attributes that consumers were looking for, what information should be on the front of the packaging, and how people bought. And I devised questions, and I took a small sample size of retailers that stocked our products in Halfords, B&Q's, and Texas stores You don't remember the old Texas stores, but the old Texas stores used to be around in the 80s, 1980s, 1985s, 1990. So Halfords, B&Q's, Texas, Argos stores, and I did some questionnaires, and then the questionnaires was based on the consumer buying behavior models in terms of features and benefits, and then um, went into the stores, took us, developed the kind of the research in terms of the buying behavior, to develop the methodology, developed the sampling and how the sampling was going to be done, tried to make it as unbiased and as random as possible, and then went into the stores myself and did these research questions, and I found out that that consumers wanted to see a picture of the stop lock on a steering wheel to see how it fits. Consumers wanted to see various features, and they would sum up all the features and kind of make an evaluation on the sum of the features rather than looking at specific attributes. So again, then I looked at the specific attributes that the consumers were looking for, and then I advised the company accordingly. Now, without having done this research, I couldn't go back as the marketing manager and say, this is what you need to do. But because I had done that and I'd analysed the information and the data, and I said, well, this is what you needed to do. Well, I was quite sure, 100% sure in terms of what needed to be done, what needed to be on the packaging, and so on and so forth. And there was really no one else who could argue the case to the contrary, because in essence, I had done the research. So again, you're going to be in positions at some time or another which will mean that you will need to undertake research to determine your decision-making process and what you should do and where you should, spend your resources. Different, step 2, which is to develop the research plan, which means, looking at data sources, the research approach, taking into consideration the research instruments, sampling plan, and contact methods. Research approaches, there are different approaches, includes observation, ethnographic, you can use a focus group, you can do surveys with obviously different types of questionnaires, which we're going to cover later, behavioral data and experimentation. So there are different approaches to conducting research, and obviously these approaches will differ depending whether on if it's primary research or secondary research. So traditional marketing research approach, means that desk research comes first, providing information for the qualitative research, which in turn feeds into the quantitative research. So now let's kind of move on to the questionnaire and questions. Obviously, this in itself is extremely important because, if you are doing, deductive research, which is, a funnel, top down, or inductive research, depending upon whether it's kind of like qualitative or quantitative based. And also the sequencing of the questions is important, the type of questions you use, the words you use, because, how you phrase it, not using double edge or double barrel questions, because all of these things can lead to bias, and bias can lead to, the sample being, incorrect in terms of the representation of the total population at hand. So research instruments, you have various ones including, questionnaires, qualitative measures, and technological devices. So when we're looking at questionnaires, do's and don'ts, ensure questions are free of bias. So the questions can't be leading. So a leading question would be, "Don't you think?" So in essence, I see sometimes the questions are phrasing, "Don't you think?" Or people say this sometimes, "Don't you think?" Well, "Don't you think?" is basically telling you what to think. So that's a leading question. Make questions simple. The questions should be specific. Avoid jargon that people don't understand. And again, avoid sophisticated words, and also avoid ambiguous words. Make sure you don't have hyperventricles. Avoid negatives. Avoid words that could be misheard. Use response bands and use mutually exclusive categories, and allow for other in fixed response questions. So question types, dichotomous. Arranging this trip, did you contact the Virgin Atlantic? It's either a yes or no. Question types in terms of multiple choices. With whom are you traveling on this trip? No one, spouse, spouse and children, children only, business associates, or an organized tour group. Question types like a Likert scale. So the Likert scale is, here's an example here. It says, indicate your level of agreement with the following statement. Small airlines generally give better service than large ones. So in other words, you would tick one of these boxes. Do you strongly agree, disagree, neither agree nor disagree, agree or strongly agree? Question types, semantic differential, like Virgin Atlantic, large to small, experienced to inexperienced, modern to old-fashioned. In terms of an importance scale, airline food is which one of these to me? Is it extremely important, very important, somewhat important, not very important, or not at all important? You have a rating scale. So Virgin Atlantic's food service is excellent, very good, good, fair, or poor. Question types, the intention to buy scale. So, how likely are you to purchase tickets on Virgin Atlantic if in-flight internet access were available? Definitely buy, probably buy, not sure, probably not buy, definitely not buy. So question types, again you have some which are completely unstructured, and here you have a box and allowing people to kind of put their own opinions. What is your opinion of Virgin Atlantic? But even though you have these, they can still be quantified because you group them. So you look at the responses that you have, and then you group certain categories, and then you can put tallies and frequencies to those categories. Word association, what is the first word that comes into your mind when you hear the following? Airline, British, travel. And again, you would look at the responses here, and then you would see hopefully some similarities, and then for those similarities you could group them. You could group them into certain categories, which would allow you later to quantify them. Sentence completion. When I choose an airline, the most important consideration in my decision is. Again, this is trying to get people's feelings in terms of what's important to them, which is important as well. Story completion. I flew Virgin a few days ago. I noticed that the exterior and interior of the plane had very bright colours. This aroused in me the following thoughts and feelings. Now complete the story. Qualitative measures. You have word association. You have projective techniques, visualization, brand personification, and layering. And technological devices, galvanometers, tachoscope, eye cameras, audio meters, and GPS. Again, can monitor data and information. Sampling plan. Again, need to be taken into consideration. Sampling unit. Again, you need to determine who is to be surveyed, and also the sampling size. How many people should be surveyed, and sampling procedure. How should the respondents be chosen? Again, this is very important if you're doing primary quantitative research, because for the samples, after you've defined the population, then the sample sizes must be large enough to be representative of the total population as a hand. Otherwise, you can't make inferences of the total population from the samples taken. You have types of samples. Again, you have a probability sample and a non-probability sample. So types of samples for probability sampling including simple random samples, stratified random sample, and cluster area samples. So a simple random sample, every member of the population has an equal chance of selection. For the stratified random sample, the population now is divided into mutually exclusive groups, such as age groups, and random samples are drawn from each group. And cluster samples, here the population is divided into mutually exclusive groups, such as city blocks, and the researcher draws a sample of the groups to interview. For non-probability sampling, which is not representative of the total population, you have convenience sampling, judgment sampling, and quota sampling. Convenience sampling, the researcher selects the most accessible population members. Judgment sampling, the researcher selects population members, who are good prospects for accurate information. Quota sampling, the researcher finds and interviews a prescribed number of people in each of several categories. Contact methods includes, for in terms of different types of different types of methods, includes mail questionnaires, telephone interviews, personal interviews, and online interviews. And the pros and cons of online research includes it's inexpensive. It's easier to contact people online. It's fast, accuracy of data, even for sensitive questions, because you're not doing it face to face. Versatility. And the disadvantages: small sample sizes. The samples can be skewed. There can be technological problems, and there can be inconsistencies which could lead to biases. So now we move on to what are marketing metrics. So marketing metrics is a set of measures that helps marketers quantify, compare, and interpret marketing performance. Marketing metrics is in terms of external, in terms of looking at awareness, looking at the market share that a company has, relative price, number of customer complaints, customer satisfaction, distribution, total number of customers, and loyalty. Internal metrics may include the awareness of goals, commitment to goals, active support, resource adequacy, staffing levels, the desire to learn, willingness to change, freedom to fail, and autonomy. So now, what do we mean by MDSS? So MDSS is the Marketing Decision Support System. So that is the Marketing Decision Support System. And this is a coordinated collection of data, systems, tools, and techniques with supporting software and hardware by which an organization gathers and interprets relevant information from businesses and environment and turns it into the basis for marketing action. So let's look at this again. It's a coordinated collection of data, systems, tools, and techniques with supporting software and hardware. So the organization gathers, interprets the information, and then from the environment, and then bases that for marketing action. Okay. So what are the characteristics of good marketing research? It should be scientific method, research creativity. You may want to use multiple methods, interdependence of models and data, reviewing and looking at the value and the cost of the information, healthy skepticism, and making sure that it's ethical marketing. Knowing your customers, very, very important to know your customers, and not just your customers, the needs of your customers. Marketing research is about knowing your customer. Tom Hanks shows up, shows you how it's done in the video that's attached to these PDF slides. So have a look at this. So some of the barriers to use of marketing research, includes an uneven caliber of researchers, which again could lead to sampling and data bias. Narrow conception of research, so it's too narrow. Poor framing of the problem. If you frame the problem wrong, your whole research is going to be wrong, and you may not actually get what you actually want. So defining the problem, framing it correctly, and knowing exactly what you want to achieve is very important. Otherwise you're not going to achieve what you want. Late and occasionally erroneous findings, and personality and presentational differences. So measuring marketing productivity in terms of marketing metrics, set of measures that helps them quantify, compare, and interpret their marketing performance. In terms of the marketing mix modeling, here we're talking about analyze data from a variety of sources to understand more precisely the effects of specific marketing activities. So, marketing metrics. So, what is marketing metrics modeling? So, the modeling of marketing, marketing mix modeling. So, the marketing mix models analyze data from a variety of different sources, such as the retailer scanner data, in terms of what people are buying, how often they're buying it, and what's being purchased at what price, company shipment data, pricing metrics, media and promotion spending data to understand more precisely the effects of specific marketing activities. Marketing dashboards, can include things like the customer performance scorecard, records how well the company is doing year after year on a customer based measures, and stakeholder performance scorecard tracks the satisfaction of various constituencies who have a critical interest in and the impact of the company's performance, including employee, suppliers, banks, distributors, retailers, and stockholders. So, the measure of market demand, we're talking about potential market and the available market, as well as the target market and the penetrated market. Vocabulary for demand measurement includes the market demand, market forecast, market potential, the company demand, company sales forecast, and the company's sales potential. Again, very important to understand these. How can we estimate the current demand? By the total market potential and the area market potential, market build-up method and the multiple factor index method, which we're going to look at. Okay, so calculating the brand development index, BDI. Here, if we take the percentage of EU brand, take the territory by different countries or cities: London, Paris, Berlin, Madrid, Rome, Amsterdam, and then you can see the percentage of EU brand, and you can see B, the percentage of EU category by sales, by different countries, by EU category and EU brand. Estimating future demand. This can be done by survey of buyers' intentions, composite of sales force, opinions. You can get the expert opinion in terms of, estimating future demand, past sales analysis, and market test methods. So there are different ways to estimate the future demand. So what do we cover today? So today we have, kind of discussed what is market research, the different types of questions that you can use in a questionnaire, and marketing metrics. And marketing research is very, very important for any manager, senior manager, in that position, because it allows you to make good decisions. And if your managers and your bosses see that you can make good decisions which bear fruit based on research, because you know how to conduct your research, then that puts you in a greater position of power. And so this is something that you should know and learn how to do, both conducting primary and secondary research, qualitative and quantitative methods. So thank you today from Mr. Tan.